Okay, so we're on Perek Yud Pasuk Chavav. It's page 344, and it starts on Pasuk 24, actually. Vayikra Paro El Moshe. It's about 6 lines from the top. Vayikra Paro El Moshe, Vayomer L'chu Yivdu Es Hashem. Go serve God. Rak tzonchem uvekarchem yutzog. You're going to leave your cattle here. Gam tapchem yilechim achem. Okay, your children could go with you too. So Moshe says, I think not. I got different plans. Vayomer Moshe gam ata titein b'yadeinu zvochi v'olos. Not only we're taking our cattle, you're going to give us sacrifices. V'asilu l'Hashem Elokeinu. And of course, v'gam mikteinu yelechemano. Our cattle will go with us. Lo sishar parsa. Not one hoof will remain in Egypt. Ki mimenu nikach la'avodas Hashem Elokeinu. Because we're going to take that to serve our God. V'anachnu lo neida ma na'avodas Hashem ad bo'inu Hashem. We don't know how we're going to serve Hashem until we get there. Did we not speak about this last time? About the idea that a person doesn't know what your true service is until you get there, right? I thought we mentioned that. Okay, so that's an important That's an important idea that a person should always realize that do it all because you don't know which one. Sometimes we seem to see little mitzvahs, we don't think it's that significant. Yeah, it's all significant. Also, you don't know when a little mitzvah leads to a big mitzvah, and so on and so forth. Okay, now. Take a look at Perek Yud Aleph Pasuk Beis. So God says to Moshe Rabbeinu the following, page 346, top of the page. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. God says to Moshe, Od nega echad avi al Paro. I'm going to bring one more nega, one more plague on Paro. We'll look at that word nega in a moment. Ve'al Mitzrayim, and on the Egyptians. Acharechen yishalach eschem mizeh. He will send you from here. He's gonna chase you out. I'm gonna give him such a plague, he's gonna be happy to chase you out. Now, first of all, the word nega, does anybody know where else that it shows up in the Torah, the word nega? What does the word nega mean? It means a plague, but what else is it? What does nogea mean? To touch. Where else does that come up in the Torah? Yishai, join us. Where else does that come up in the Torah? In leprosy. Leprosy, when the Torah, in the book of Vayikra, in Tazria and Metzorah, when the Torah discusses the plagues, what we call leprosy, tsaras, so the Torah talks about it as a nega. The Torah talks about it as a plague is called a nega. What's the connection between leprosy, the plague over here? Why is the plague called a nega, a touch? Well, it's certainly more than a touch, it's a punch. Why is it called a touch?
Which plague was called that?
Say what?
Which plague was?
Right now he calls Od Nega Echad, right on the top, page 340. But he says Od Nega, another one. That means they're all called Nega. He says one more Nega, one more touch, one more plague. Referring to the plague of the firstborn, but all of them essentially are called plagues, and you see that Saras is called a plague. What is called a Nega? What's the idea of a Nega? You know, the word Nega means to touch. A touch means that I'm touching a person specifically on a specific point. So, if you have somebody speaks Lashon Hara, somebody says something bad, and that's one of the reasons why a person gets leprosy. Now, a guy spoke Lashon Hara, next thing you know, he's got an outbreak of leprosy. A guy is, what does that show you? It shows you that there's a very personal God that's putting a touch on you. Isn't that the whole point of the plagues in Egypt? What was the point of the plagues in Egypt? To show Paro and the Egyptians that there is direct intervention, Hashem directly intervenes in the world. That's the whole point of all this. It's called a nega to show you, that's why the Egyptians get blood and the Jews don't. You've been touched and you haven't been touched. That's the whole point of the whole thing. I'm going to bring one more touch on him. The whole point is to convince Paro, the whole point here is to convince Paro that there is a very personal God, what they call a personal God. The world does not run randomly and haphazardly. There's a creator, which Paro agrees with. But Paro's philosophy is there's a creator and then the world runs by itself independently. God say, no. The whole point is to show you that there is a personal God. Again, the implications of a personal God means, and therefore you have obligations. Therefore you have to keep Shabbos, you have to put on tefillin, and don't eat pork. Because there's a personal God, who cares? He's involved in the day-to-day living of the world. That's the whole point of what's going on here. And therefore he says, I'm going to bring one more plague, and then he's going to send you out. Now the next pasuk is very, very difficult to understand. Daber na be'ozneam, please speak to the people. V'yishalu ish me'esra eo v'isha me'esra usa, and each man should ask from his fellow, and each woman from her fellow woman, the Egyptians, klei chesef u'klei zahav, silver and gold. How did the Jews know who had silver and who had gold? So the Torah says that during the plague of darkness, the Jews walked around the Egyptian homes. And they opened up the drawers and they took a look inside and they said, well, yeah, they're saying all sorts of stuff. Then they come back afterwards. And when they say, can I have that, we're leaving, can I have that gold necklace? Oh, we haven't got one. Oh yeah, it's second drawer on the right under the socks. You know, and how do you know? You know, because we were in there, we saw it during the plague of darkness. Now, two amazing things have happened over here. First of all, picture yourself, you're an Egyptian, and it's dark, and you can't even move. And you hear people walking around your house, and drawers are opening and closing, right? And like, who's there? You know, you can't even, what's going on? You can't even see. And the Jews are just walking around, hey, this looks pretty good. There's a golden pharaoh over there. You know, all the things that you're looking at. And drawers are opening and closing. We had a break-in once in our house. I want to tell you, it is one of the most unnerving things. All right, there was nothing to steal. They pop, you have on the windows, they have those metal bars. So apparently they used a car jack. We were away, they used a car jack, and somehow they insert it, they pop it, they just pop it right off. You know, it pops off. So they came in through our kitchen. And I think they took, I didn't have much to steal. They weren't really interested in my Baba Kama. You know, there wasn't much to steal. It's not like I got hidden piles over. I think they went and they made off with about $37 worth of cheap jewelry, something like that. But the terribly disconcerting thing, first of all, you feel violated. Hey, what the heck is going on? What are you taking my stuff for? What are you doing at my house? Terrible feeling. And the worst part is that for a couple of months afterwards, every time there's a peep in the house, your wife said, what was that? Well, that's called a telephone, okay? Every time there's all you hear, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. What was that? What am I supposed to do if it is something? So I used to sleep with a hammer by my bed, so that if somebody breaks in, I could hit myself and put myself out of my misery and say, what am I going to do? Go confront them with a hammer? Hello, make my day. What am I going to do with a hammer? So I used to sleep with a hammer. You go, okay, now I got a hammer. So I'd roll over at night and hit my head on the hammer. It's a terrible feeling. So you imagine you're in the dark and people are walking around your house. Now remember, in the United States, they've had blackouts. Right? What happens when there's a blackout in America? What follows immediately? Looting, right? Right away there's looting. It's not like they go, let's go look through and see what's in the supermarket so tomorrow we'll come back and buy it on sale. That's not what happens. They take the whole supermarket is looted. There's nothing left over. There's nothing worse than being in a blackout in America. As a matter of fact, I had a guy here, it's a pretty funny story. I had a guy here who became a Baal Tshuva, 100% Baal Tshuva. His father was completely detached from Judaism. Completely detached. Even there was a bombing in Israel and he calls his son, he says, well, your people are having some trouble there in Israel. Says, Dad, they're your people too. We're all the same people. So his father retired. His father was a corrections officer at Rikers Island. I was a correction officer. The guy told me his father worked with the scum of the earth, and then there were the inmates also. So that's what his father did. So he says his father and his mother eventually they moved to Miami. Remember there was a blackout in Miami a few years ago? They had bought a condo, they moved to Miami. The day they got there was a blackout. For 3 days there was a blackout. Not only he was stuck in the dark, their mother-in-law was with them, right? And so he says for 3 days it's pitch black, there's no air conditioning, and she's kvetching, right? She's kvetching and kvetching. That's one thing, you're stuck in the dark. It's another thing, your mother-in-law is there kvetching. Finally, his father has no connection to Judaism at all. Finally, after 3 days, the electricity goes on. His son calls, hey, Dad, what's going on? He says, well, we're stuck here with your mother and with Ma and your grandma, and finally the lights went on. Baruch Hashem! Baruch Hashem! He was, that got him religious. So I understood an interesting Gemara for that, because the Gemara says that somebody for various averas, nothing like with being stuck with your mother-in-law in the dark, the Gemara says that when a person does certain averas, ma'amikin lo Gehenna. Gehenna, purgatory, is made for, you're so bad, they make it even deeper. I mean, how could purgatory get any worse? The answer is you could be stuck in the dark, which is Gehenna, and you could be stuck in the dark with your mother-in-law. Right? That purgatory gets even worse. You're in Gehenna and you're in Gehenna with your mother-in-law. That could be even worse. So that's what the idea of darkness. Remember we spoke about darkness is Gehenna. Now here he says to Jewish people, Daber no. What does the word no mean? Please. Right? Isn't that strange? Do me a favor, please please tell the Jewish people and convince them to go ask for gold and silver, which they're going to receive from the neighbors. You know, I don't know about you, but you wouldn't have to twist my arm. Yeah, you know, go ahead, ask your neighbors for gold and silver. Nah, I couldn't. Yeah, I'm Jewish. Not only I could, I will. All right, I have no problem at all. Well, you got to twist their arm to go ask them. Can you imagine it? Can you imagine a kiddush at shul on Shabbos? Come on, everybody, please take from the kiddush on Shabbos, right? The Jews, you know. And by the way, I want to tell you something. If they would charge a quarter, all you could eat at the kiddush for a quarter, no Jews would eat. Forgot it. I'll go home anyway. Should I pay a quarter? The kiddush is free? Are you kidding me? You're lucky to get out of there with your hand without teeth marks on it. You know, reaching for a piece of cake. Well, you got to go plead with the Jewish people. Plead with the Jewish people. Go in and and ask the Egyptians for gold and silver. Why would you have to plead with them? Why would you have to plead with them? So the Gemara says that God was saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't want that Avraham Avinu, the forefather of the Jewish people, should have any complaints against me. I promised him that his children would leave Egypt, and they would leave with great birichush gadol, they would leave with great property. Now, if they leave empty-handed, where's the great property? Okay. Now, what is the richush gadol really? What is meant to be this valuable property that they're going to leave Egypt with? What it really refers to is receiving the Torah at Har Sinai. They're going to receive the Torah at Har Sinai. That's the point of leaving Egypt. But in case anybody comes along and says, "Hey, you know, okay, that's nice, but where's the cash?" It says, let's make sure we've got it covered on all levels of meaning. You're going to receive the Torah, which is fine, but you know you're going to have some cash in hand as well. Okay, now. What's the point of leaving to receive the Torah? If you're going to have a new master, you have to be rid of your old master. In other words, the Jewish people had to receive the Torah willingly and say Na'aseh v'nishma, right? They had to accept the Torah. We will receive the Torah. If you're a slave, you don't have any jurisdiction to do that. If you're a slave, then you're being controlled by Paro. So first you have to leave Egypt in order to accept God as your new master. You cannot be subjugated by a master of flesh and blood. You have to be freed. That's the whole point of freeing them from Egypt. Now we're ready to be to submit, to accept God as a new master. Now, anybody know why, therefore, based on that, what do? We have a certain halachic procedure during the course of the year to commemorate that. Anybody know what it is? Say what? You're close? You're close? What starts on? Yes, very good. We count the Omer. Isn't that interesting? You ever heard of the Sfiras HaOmer? We count the Omer from Pesach. We count 49 days to Shavuos. What's the idea? What's the idea of counting Pesach to Shavuos? Shavuos will receive the Torah, right? What's the idea? There's a connection. Obviously, if you're counting from one thing to another, obviously there's a connection between the two. That means that the whole purpose of the freedom in Pesach was to get to Shavuot so we could receive the Torah. But just remember, that's the whole point of the freedom. Freedom for the sake of without any goal, you may as well be a slave. Be a slave in Egypt. The whole point of the freedom is to head for a certain direction. It's not freedom. It's not like school, summer vacation. You know, what are you doing in the summer? I don't know. We'll decide when we get there. No. They may as well stay in school, right? But if you have freedom that's heading for a direction, that's freedom that's worthwhile. Do you remember when the Jewish, you guys don't remember this before some of you probably, most of you were probably born. But remember when they had the Russian Jewry? When they had the Russian Jewry, they had a bumper sticker. Back in the 70s, 60s and 70s, when the Russian Jewry, they had a bumper, it's a very popular one that said, Shalach et ami, let my people go. Shalach et ami, it's a very popular bumper sticker. Then the Frum version came out. The Frum version had one more. What do you call it? Had one more line. That's a quote from the pasuk. Shalach et ami is a quote from a pasuk. They left out a word. V'yavduni, and they will serve me. Let my people go that they may serve me. The point of freedom is not freedom for freedom's sake. The point of freedom is that you could then serve the other master. So there was physical bondage in Egypt. Then we accept the Torah. We're not physically bounded by the Torah, but we are spiritually bounded. And the only way we can make that commitment is we get free from Egypt. So the Torah says to the Jewish people, please, Moshe Rabbeinu, convince the people, ask for the, okay, that's one of the explanations. One of the other commentaries says, hold for a few minutes. One of the other commentaries says like this, a very interesting idea. Imagine the following. There's a little old lady on the street, and you see her carrying her packages. And you, in the goodness of your heart, you go over and you pick up her packages and you start walking a couple of blocks with her. And it's a hot day and you're sweating. It's not easy. And you walk a couple of blocks. And then when you get there, she says, oh, you're such a nice boy, right? So first she's got, oh, have I got a girl for you, right? So that's always, she's got a niece. They always got a niece or a granddaughter. They can be careful, all right? So you carry her bags, and then she says to you, that was so nice of you, and she pulls out a $5 bill to give you a $5 bill for your trouble. Would you take it?
No.
You wouldn't take it?
No.
Isaac, you're struggling?
I shouldn't.
You shouldn't take it. I don't know, right? She's offering you $5. Would you take it? I wouldn't take it. I don't think you'd take it. I don't think you guys would take it. I think you guys got a little bit of class. $100 bills we'll talk about. A $5 bill, $5 bill. I don't think you would take $100. Why not? Why not?
The purpose of the good deed.
How does it defeat the purpose?
Because you're getting something in return.
You're getting something in return. So that's certainly true. There's a halacha that you are not allowed to receive money for, there's an idea of returning lost objects. When you return a lost object, according to halacha, you cannot take payment for returning a lost object because there's a Torah obligation to do so. You have an obligation to return a lost object. You're not allowed to take payment for returning a lost object because you have an obligation to do so, assuming you're in a situation where you have an obligation to do so. Sometimes you could go beyond the letter of the law. Sometimes you go beyond the letter of the law, that's something else. But when you return a lost object, when you have an obligation, it's got signs on it, and you have to call the owner to return a lost object, then you've got the Torah obligation to do it and not be rewarded. As a matter of fact, there was a very interesting question that came up recently. A guy gets on a bus. He's on his way to, guy's going from Yerushalayim, and he's on his way to Chadera. Chadera is up north. The bus stops in Netanya, Chadera, and then eventually gets to Tzfas. Listen to this one. This is a dandy. These are the halachic questions Rabbanim have to deal with. So a guy, we'll call the guy Ruvain, gets on the bus, and Ruvain's holding a laptop. And he puts the laptop up on the ledge, on the thing up top on the bus. Okay, the bus makes its first stop in Netanya, and Ruvain gets off. Shimon notices that Ruvain did not take the laptop with him. So the bus stops at the next stop, which is Netanya. Shimon gets off, and he takes the laptop because he's going to return it to Ruvain. Okay. Torah obligation. He gets off the bus and he opens up the laptop and he calls, sees what he called, and he calls a number. And the guy who answers the phone, is not Ruvain. Somebody else, it's Yehuda. He says, hi, I found your laptop. He says, what do you mean you found my laptop? He says, I got off in Netanya, you left your laptop on the bus. He says, that's not his laptop. I was getting on the bus and I had a package, I was overloaded, and this guy, Ruvain, offered to help me out. So he took my laptop and he put it on. The laptop isn't his, the laptop is mine. My name is Yehuda and I live in Tzfas, and when I got home in Tzfas, I was missing my laptop. Now what do you do with my laptop? He says, well, I took the laptop off the bus to fulfill the Torah obligation to return it to Ruvain. He says, well, it's very nice of you, but you messed me over. I happen to be an architect and I need that thing and I want you to get it to me within the next 2 hours. He says, well, it's, very good. I'm here in Netanya. If you want to send a cab, I'll send a cab and I'll give it to the cab driver. He can send it, you can bring it back here. You could drive over. He says, drive over nothing. You put it in a cab, pay the driver and send it to me. You didn't help me out here. You messed me over. Good question, right? Good question. Now, what do you think the halacha is? Who's responsible to get that laptop, to pay for to go through the trouble and to get that laptop back to him? Yehuda is, why?
I don't know the halakhic explanation, but just intuitively, it seems like Ruvain's intentions were good, so you shouldn't be punished for proper intentions.
Oh, you shouldn't be punished for proper intentions, which would seem intuitive. The only problem is that the halacha is you are responsible for your actions, even if you mess something up unintentionally. If you're sitting at my table, you knock a glass off the table. I didn't mean to, right? Or you did.
Different though.
Okay.
That's different because I wasn't. that's just an accident. Here he was following halacha,
Very good, very good. Mike, very good.
To the best of his knowledge.
Very good, very good. In other words, not only that, there is even more of a halacha to back it up, which is that there's a principle, anything somebody is holding, the assumption is it belongs to you. Possession is 9/10 of the law. If you see a guy get on a bus with a laptop, obviously your modus operandi is that it belongs to him, he forgot it. You don't go and ask, when's the last time somebody gave a laptop to somebody else? But that's exactly how the Rav Paskin, the Rav who was asked, Rav Elyashiv Sonai, Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein Paskin, listen, according to halacha, you did what you were supposed to do. And these are extenuating circumstances, they're absolutely correct.
Right.
But you see, you have an obligation to return lost objects, so it's up to Yehuda. Yehuda's going to have to get the thing back. I did everything I could possibly do according to halacha. You can't come to me now. That's how Rav Zilberstein Paskin. The point is that you have an obligation to return lost objects, right? But it's even more than that. You see, if you help a little old lady, you feel good about yourself, don't you? And she sees you in a certain light. Ah, what a nice boy. You like that. We all like to be seen. When you do something good for somebody, you walk away thinking to yourself, wow, that guy thinks I'm a tzaddik. You know, I think I'm a tzaddik, and he probably thinks I'm a tzaddik. What you don't know is the guy's really thinking about you. Boy, I don't kid like that do something nice. That's out of character, But we like, at least we like to think that people look up at us a certain way. The Jewish people were just in the Egyptian homes. They're looking through the drawers. You know what the Egyptians are thinking of Jewish people? My goodness, if that was us, that wouldn't have happened. We'd have cleaned the place out. So they see the Jewish people in a certain stature. And I know you see me with a certain stature. I don't know if I want to go asking you for that. I'd rather live with a good reputation. That sometimes the reputation is worth more than the money. I don't know that I want to go. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu says, please, we know that, but Hashem wants you to ask them for the goods. He wants you to leave with the, I'll get to you one second, Mr. Fogel. Hashem wants you to leave with the property. There's actually in Lakewood, Lakewood where they have the Lakewood Yeshiva, where they have the thousands and thousands of Jews there. So Purim, Jewish kids, Jews drink on Purim. So the janitor, one of the maintenance men at the Lakewood Yeshiva, not a Jewish guy, he said he's been there for 20 years. He sees hundreds of 20-year-old males walking the streets drunk on Purim. A few blocks away, there's a seminary filled with girls. He says never once in 20 years has there been any sort of incident between the boys and the girls. He said if it was me and my buddies, we'd be arrested by morning. That's what the guy said. So there's a certain reputation that you have, and you don't want to blow it. Therefore, Hashem says, ask the Jewish people, please convince them to ask, even if it means that their stature, their perceived stature, will be lowered in the eyes of the Egyptians. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Fogel. Go ahead. For this reason, because he's concerned that there may be a hesitation. They want to ruin their reputation. Therefore, please make sure, and I promised Avram Avinu, and I don't want anybody to come back and say, well, the literal meaning of, even though the intent was the Torah, I don't want anybody to come back and say, well, the literal meaning, which is that they're going to leave with wealth, was not fulfilled. They're leaving, and they're leaving with class. Yes, Yishai.
How do we reconcile the idea that inanimate objects receive truma or impurity, and that we're taking objects that were used probably for idolatrous practices?
So you're right. Something that was used for, that's a good question. Not everything was used for idolatry. Necklaces and earrings and dresses and clothing is not used for idolatry. Something that's used for idolatrous practices, you're absolutely right. You're not allowed to get any benefit from it. Something that was actually worshipped, you're not allowed to get any benefit. As a matter of fact, in Israel, I'll get to you one second. In Israel, not in Israel, in the world at large, there was a very interesting incident, a fascinating problem that came up with the shaitels. Jewish women wear wigs. Do you remember the wig crisis?
Oh, yeah.
So what happened was a few years back, I'm guessing, what was it, about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, within the last 10 years, probably within the last 5 years. What happened was there's a certain wig company that was getting their hair from India. Wigs are big business in Jewish, women and Jewish women wear wigs, and from women wear wigs, and there was a wig company that was getting their hair from India. And somebody somehow discovered this, coming from some small village in India, the people coming to an idol worshiping, there's some sort of idol worshiping group over there, and the priests were there, and the priests had a factory. The priests were the ones who were running this hair business. What happened is people would come every year or two, and they would pay tribute to the idol, and they would shave their heads, and then they would give the hair to the priests. The priests made wigs out of it, which is all fine. We expect priests to make something on the side, just and they were shaving their head and giving it to priests. They had a geschäft going over there. They had a real business going over there. But then somebody realized if they were shaving their heads here as like almost an entrance fee, just here, this is for the priests, and now we're going in to worship the idol, that's okay. But if they're shaving their heads, if they're cutting their hair, as part of the worshiping rite, then that hair is not permissible to be used. So, because it's been used as, in other words, exactly what Yishai is talking about. So what happened was the Rabbanim they actually sent a Dayan Dunner from England, and others went down there in some obscure place in India, and they had to go down and figure out what's going on in this place, because you got a bunch of women, the Rabbanim said, that the women are not allowed to wear the shaitels that come from this company, because until it's clarified, because they may be wearing prohibited hair. So there were a lot of women who never wore what they call a tichel, the what do you call it, who were walking around in tichels. They walk around tichels until this was clarified. Now I don't remember what the end of what the psak was, but it was a major what do you call it? Because this is exactly what Yishai says. That's when it's used. It's either an idol, or it's used in the idol worshiping rite. The Egyptians had plenty of gold and silver that was not used, the diamonds and jewelry and all that stuff, that wasn't used. You're right, if it was an idol, you're not allowed to use it, even if you have a doubt about it. Because it's a Torah prohibition, then you wouldn't be allowed to use it. And there was a major panic among the women, because the women who had shaitels that come from other companies wasn't a problem, and certainly the synthetic ones. But the ones that had, and this is apparently a big business over there in India, so they weren't allowed. There's an incredible story because there was one woman teacher who was teaching fourth graders. And this is a woman who never left the house without a wig, ever. Not shopping, not to the doctor, not to the things. She was just well put together. And she came to class every day with her shaitel. She probably showered with her shaitel. This is a woman, she never took off her wig, And also one day she shows up and she's wearing a tichel, what they call a snoot or a tichel, one of these cloth coverings. So those 9-year-old girls are looking at her, oh my goodness, what's going on? They were absolutely shocked, She said, listen, the Rabbanim said that we're not allowed to wear shaitels from this company. If they said we're not allowed to wear shaitels, as painful as it is for me, we're not allowed to wear shaitels. So the girls were very impressed. And one of the girls stands up in the room, 9-year-old girl, she stands up, she reaches up to her head, and she pulls off a wig. She's got no hair underneath. The girls are looking at her, what's going on? She said, well, about 4 months ago, I was diagnosed with an illness. And my hair started falling out, so I've been wearing a wig. And nobody knew. But if the Rabbanim say we're not allowed to wear these wigs, I'm not wearing these wigs. 9-year-old Jewish child, right? So I don't remember what the end was. I think in the end it was okay. I don't remember what the end was. But the bottom line is that halacha is true, that if it's used for idol worship, then it's not, what do you call it? Yeah.
When did the Jews first find out about the receiving of Torah?
When they leave Egypt. When they leave Egypt.
So 1 second, so before they cross the sea, before they go into
We'll see. We're going to get to there. We're going to get to next week's parsha. Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, well, let's go on over. There's another very, very essential point here in Judaism. This is a fundamental, and this is really the one I wanted to get to today. If you take a look, this is right before, it's on page 346. Okay? Now, the next pasuk. It's the next pasuk. On page 346, it's pasuk Gimel. It's 5 lines from the top. This is such a fundamental concept, and this applies to many people at all levels of Yiddishkeit. Now, I want you to pay attention very carefully. This is extremely important. Everything we say is important, hopefully, but this is extremely important. In Pasuk Gimel, it says like this, 5 lines from the top. Vayitein Hashem eschein ha'am b'einei Mitzrayim. Hashem puts the grace of the people in the eyes of the Egyptians. Gam ha'ish Moshe godol me'od be'eretz Mitzrayim. The man Moshe is very prominent in the land of Egypt. Be'enei avdei Paro, in the eyes of the servants of Paro, uve'enei ham, in the eyes of the people. Now, I think we've mentioned before that anytime it says avdei Paro means the inner circle. The ministers and the sorcerers and the higher caliber inner circle of the king, the advisors, the ministers, and everything else. Torah comes along, Torah says the man Moshe was very impressive in the eyes of the servants of Paro and in the eyes of the people. Now, let me ask you a question. Let's use medicine as an example. You're trying to determine the skill level of a certain doctor. How would you determine it? And you find out this doctor has done some impressive heart transplant surgery. How would you determine whether or not what the skill level of the doctor is?
Based on his previous work.
And how would you find out about his previous work?
You would ask previous patients, testimonies.
You would ask previous patients? I wouldn't. I would ask doctors. Patients, everybody everybody who is vertical says they got a great doctor. Oh, my doctor's great. Sure, because you're alive, right? That's why my doctor, oh, you ought to go to my doctor. He's great. Sure, because you're not in pain right now. You're alive, right? And your ingrown toenail is cured, right? So your doctor is great, right? If you were looking for skill, you know, you read that James DeBakey did the first heart transplant. Must be the best heart surgeon in the world. Talk to some of the heart surgeons. DeBakey's good. I mean, he discovered transplant surgery. You want a guy to, and therefore, is he the one who's doing intricate heart surgery? Well, he's the only one I heard of, so I guess, yeah. Right? I don't think so. I would ask the skilled guy, I'd say, no, we got guys who've got such golden hands and skills, they put him in a box. Right? Why? Because they know. How could you possibly know? You don't know anything about the subject. You don't know anything about the subject. You want to talk about art. Well, I think that's a classic painting. That one right over there, I mean, that one, I think, that was worth millions. Really? And it's hanging on the wall at Or Sameach, huh? You know, why does people know about art? You know, they'd look at it and say, who was the fourth grader who did that? You know, that's what actually looks to me like pretty good. But talk to an art person, that's not going to be, you know, they laugh you out about it. There are things about it that you don't even know where it begins, right? They always have in the football games. I love this. You know, it's 4th and 2 or 4th and 1, and the fans are all yelling, go for it, go for it, go for it. Yes, for some reason they're not going for it. Why not? Because the coach and the players on the field know that if they go for it, the quarterback's going to die, right? They're going to knock off his helmet. They're not going to knock off his head, right? They know what's going on. You haven't the faintest idea what's going on a football field. You know, they throw a pass and a catch, and a guy made a tie, and all you don't even know that it has to do with because one inside the left tackle got off the snap a little too slow. That's made the whole play. You have no idea what's going on out there. How would I find out? They elect the all-star teams, right? They always have the fans ballot. Fans versus players. Who should select? Of course the players should select them. The players know who the good players are. What do fans know? The fans are watching on TV. They see the sensationalism, okay? That is something that applies in every area of life. How do you know what Moshe Rabbeinu is? What do you think would happen if you ask your average Egyptian? Zawi, the miracle man. Did you see that? Wow! You know that's impressive. We're not impressed by miracles. Notice the Torah says, Ha'ish Moshe, the man Moshe. Who could appreciate the quality of the man? Godol me'od be'eretz Mitzrayim beinei avdei Paro. The inner circle, the sophisticated people of Egypt are looking at the man Moshe. Uve'einei ha'am, the people are impressed also. What are the people impressed by? They're impressed by the miracles and frogs and thunder and everything else. What are the sophisticated people impressed by? They're impressed by Ha'ish Moshe, the man Moshe. Okay? Now, where does this apply to us in our day and age? How do you know the stature or the greatness of any Jew? You cannot look at public opinion. Can't look at the people, wow, look at all those followers. Followers don't mean anything. There have been plenty of movements in history that numbers of followers don't mean anything. What it means is what the people in the know, the knowledgeable people. People always wonder, how do you determine Torah leadership? You know how we determine Torah leadership? You heard of the Chafetz Chaim? Chafetz Chaim. Well, the Chafetz Chaim seemed to see the Chazon Ish as a man of quality. And the two of them saw Reb Chaim Ozer Grzinski as a man of quality. And the three of them saw Rav Shach as a man of quality. And Rav Shach saw Rabbi Moshe Feinstein as a man of quality. And Rav Shach and Rav Moshe Feinstein saw Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky as a man of quality. And the three of them, and so on and so forth. Quality can determine quality. Quantity does not determine quality. There are a lot of leaders. What do I know? What do I know about this? I know enough to know that I don't know. So I could ask somebody at a higher level. That's all I know. I had a guy once in another yeshiva. Kid was doing a lot of drinking. I once came to him and I said, look, I don't know enough to know if you're an alcoholic. But I know enough to know that you better go to an expert who can determine if you're an alcoholic. That much I know. I don't know if you are or not. I don't know enough about the subject. But I know enough to know that you better go check with somebody who does know the subject. It's only when you know the subject that you can determine. That's how we determine Torah leadership and Torah. We don't determine it. We have nothing to do with it. I don't know. How am I supposed to know? Not at that level. I can't possibly determine. But there's a pyramid up at the top. And the people at the top, whoever they bring in at that top level, they know it. They obviously know. That's what we call Torah leadership. That's what the Torah is teaching us over here. You know, it says the Meshech Chochmah, Reb Meir Simcha, the Or Sameach, as the yeshiva is named after. So when you look at Torah leadership, people say, how do you determine Torah leadership? Well, you know, I ask my Rebbe. And all the teachers that I ever had all seem to be pointing in one direction. Anybody you asked in America, who is the leading halachic authority? So I'd go to my rabbi, local rabbi, he'd say, well, I have to ask Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Then I go to somebody else, and he has to ask Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. The pyramid all leads up top to one Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Who did Rabbi Moshe Feinstein see as the halachic? Well, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein would say, well, it's either Rabbi Aaron Kotler or Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. And then who did the three of them bring into the club? They're the ones who can determine Torah leadership, and it's coming down from the previous generation. That's what the Meshech was saying. Miracles, we're not impressed by miracles. We're supposed to think about the miracles. That's how you determine the quality of the person. The quality of the person is determined by the people who can actually sense quality. I once got burned real bad when it comes to art, because I never thought much of art. And I didn't think much of art because I didn't know anything about art. So I thought art is a hack. So I was once in the doctor's office. I was waiting in the doctor's office. You know, he's got these prints on the walls. So I took a look at one of them. I look at the name, Goldstein. You know, I took another look at one of them. I was that impressed. So it's like Murphy. You know, I look across, I was like, hey, there's something about that painting. That's interesting. I'm looking at this painting. Hey, yeah, this one's different than those paintings. And I look at the name, Van Gogh. Right? Okay, I apologize. You know, I see I can even pick out now, I know nothing about art, zero. I could pick out a Van Gogh. I know the Van Gogh strokes, right? How's that? That's not a Van Gogh. I know the Van Gogh stroke. You understand? So even a layman could pick it. So if a layman could pick it out at that level, imagine what a person who's in the know could do. Same thing applies to scholarship and Torah leadership. All right, to be continued.